Well, and the thing that cracks me up, like you said, there is very little new when it comes to
Right.
this stuff. It's all about consistency. It's all about doing the basics, but the basics are hard, and you have to do them every day for a really long time, and be able to look back after 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years, and
Mhm.
realize, wow, look how far I've come. But day to day, you wake up just feeling like, what is the point? God, I have to do
Gotcha.
this again. This is
Right.
nonsense. But it is. There's nothing super unique. We don't have a message that you've never heard before. And that's the thing that I love about this stuff is that there's lessons I've learned in our show that I had to hear 20, 30 times before I finally heard it the right way. And it made sense to me in a way that I could then make actionable, and it changed my life. But it's just, but you have to hear it the right way at the right time.
Main goal is to empower our listeners to live their best audacious lives ever. And I'm really thrilled to have you join us and appreciate the fact that you've taken valuable time out of your day to spend it here with us. Now, life's challenges can be likened to a mountain climb full of obstacles and uncertainties. However, with the right tools and mindset, we can conquer those challenges and reach even new heights on our journey towards self-improvement and mental well-being. Our interview with Jeremy Grater and Zach Tucker sheds lights on the strategies, insights needed to overcome these obstacles and thrive in the face of adversity. A lot of fun. It's a really great episode with Jeremy and Zach. They're two friends who embarked on the world of podcasting, and when they created their platform, it's called the Fit Mess Podcast, and it was really meant as a place for open and honest conversations about life's challenges and how to overcome them. By sharing, they were able to help their listeners, but also one another. Their journey towards self-improvement and mental well-being is reflected in each and every single one of their episodes, offering valuable insights and relatable experiences to their listeners. Through the process of producing the Fitness Podcast, they've not only built a following, but also developed an expertise in personal development and mental well-being, which makes them invaluable resources to anyone seeking that positive transformation in their lives. It really is a good episode. And with them, Jeremy and Zach share their wisdom and practical advice on overcoming challenges, fostering inner strength, and achieving mental well-being. And really, it was almost like their insights were a roadmap for listeners to navigate life's obstacles with courage and resilience. Like I said, great episode that you're going to enjoy. So let's jump into it. Hey, Jeremy, Zach, thank you for joining me here on the Audacious Living Podcast. First off, it's a pleasure for you, both of you, to make the time and hang out like this. So thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. Pleasure's all ours. We really
Yeah.
appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Well, you listen, a couple guys here, a few guys here that are in the podcasting space. We'll talk about the fit mess in a bit, and we'll get into that. But we all know, podcasting, what it's all about, and the opportunity to share and impart information, insights, knowledge, all that good stuff. And so it's something I really appreciate, and that's why, again, I appreciate the fact that you guys are here to share a little bit of your story. And I mean, I could start just by saying go, 3, 2, 1, go. We could do that
Right.
too, and maybe as simple as maybe tell our audience what the Fit Mess is, because you guys have come together from sort of two different parts. I mean, one's in Canada, one's in the US, and you're all here making a difference to other people in their lives, and really inspiring and bringing motivation, which is I'm all about. So that's a great thing there. But maybe Zach can look to you and say, why don't you kind of let our audience in on kind of work you guys do and what you're doing up to now.
Yeah. So Jeremy and I actually used to live in Seattle together. So that's where we met. That's where we came together. I, I'll let Jeremy speak to his own experience, but, we both had relatively traumatic experiences growing up, lots of, mental health issues as we became young adults, and we really just had to work through them. And, it took lots and lots and lots and lots of years and trying and failing and trying and failing, little success, a little bit of success, failing again, trying again. And,
Sounds like life.
yeah, it's up and down. It's never a straight line.
Right.
And, we both got to a point where, we're kind of okay, where, we were feeding off of each other and helping each other. Um, and, the difference between my 20-year-old self and my 30-year-old self was like night and day, just absolutely incredibly different, because I tried a million different things. 13 or 14 of them worked and the rest of them didn't. Um, and you know, I was in an okay place, and I know Jeremy was getting to an okay place, and him and I were having these conversations about, I'm trying this and I'm struggling with this, and this is, we were brand new fathers at the time. And it just kind of dawned on me one day that I was like, men really don't have these conversations. Like, this is really helpful for me to like hear another guy, acknowledging my feelings, and hearing that he's having the same feelings, and I'm not alone there, and I'm not, you know, some wimp sissy dude out there. Like, we're all experiencing these things. It's just, we don't talk about them.
Right.
So Jeremy had been in podcasting for a long time, doing another show, I think, and that was wrapping up at that point. And I kind of looked over at him one day and I was like, we should do a podcast. You know how to do podcasts. We know how to talk about this stuff. Let's get on the mic and talk about our feelings and our emotions and be vulnerable. And he said, hell no. And I'll turn it over to him now to finish that one.
Before I know you're gonna get into that in a second, what I want to get into very quickly, Zach, and I think it's a key point, is when you're able to make the space for people, and you said the V word, vulnerable. I know it's something that's probably gonna come up a few times in this conversation, but I want to highlight how significant that is for the openness and being able to share and being able to be vulnerable, right? Like, if you're not able to do that, you can't connect with people. You can't help people. You can't give the support and assistance that they need. And so I don't mean to cut the origin story, because the origin story is very important, but also that vulnerable word, I think, is key in everything that we're talking about today. Yeah.
It's key in everything we're talking about. It's key in our story, and it's key in anybody trying to grow personally and feels lost and
Right.
alone and don't know how to do it. If you're not vulnerable, if you don't share what your struggle is and where you need help, guess what? The help ain't coming. So you got to figure it out and build it from the ground up, which is a hell of a lot harder than asking for somebody who's already walked 1,000 miles ahead of you and can point the way. So
no, you're absolutely right. So tell me, why the heck did you tell them no?
Well, because I felt like I think a lot of people that deal with imposter syndrome, who the hell am I? Who's going to listen to me? There's no thing hanging on my wall saying that I'm the expert in any of this stuff. Who am I to give advice?
Right.
But ultimately I realized, in kind of examining the space and other shows like it, that a lot of people were just talking about their experience and what worked for them. And no, everything we do that we talk about isn't going to work for everyone that listens to our show. A lot of it doesn't work for us, but it doesn't stop us from putting the ideas out there and the concepts out there, because it will work for somebody.
Yes.
So I was very afraid. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe that we were the kind of people that should be giving advice on how to live a good life, because I wasn't living a good life, but I was close. And so I decided ultimately that Zach was right and that we should sort of kind of air this in real time. And we just started talking about the stuff that we were going through, and he was sharing what was working for him. I was finding a few things that worked for me, and where there were gaps in our knowledge, we brought in experts to say, hey, how do we deal with this? And so ultimately we kind of threw it against the wall and it stuck. And so we've been doing it for a few years ever since. And it's largely been an accountability tool for us to keep each other accountable for the things we're trying to do, to help others that are feeling the way that we did then and the way that we do now. And so, yes, we've just been sticking with it, because we hear from people that say, man, random things, right? Like, I went to a physical therapy appointment and I was sharing how the physical therapist was like, the pain you're experiencing is stored trauma. You didn't do anything physically. It's stored trauma. Here's some things to try. And literally the day after the episode published, we get an email from somebody saying, oh my God, I never heard of that. I'd never tried that exercise. And their pain was gone. Like, they've had pain for like 5 years.
Right.
And it was gone because of what they heard us talking about. A couple of knuckleheads trying to, just live better lives, sharing some different ideas. So it's just really rewarding when we're able to, not only grow personally, but to have the lessons we learn affect other people's lives in a positive way. And so that's what we're out here doing.
I think so. So congratulations. I commend both of you. And I think what this speaks to, and this, where the success, if you look at some of the root of your success and what you've been able to do and how you impact individuals, really speaks to how close we all are to one another, right? I think there's sometimes this belief or misconception that, so what I'm experiencing, no one on the planet has any idea what it feels like, what it looks like, what it does to me, or how it impacts others around me. And really, there's nothing new under the sun. Like, everything that you're experiencing, someone else is probably done it a few times, and solved that, has that answer for you. But that doesn't happen unless we're having these dialogues. Again, I'm going to go back to the V word, unless we're being vulnerable and we're sharing.
Well, and the thing that cracks me up, like you said, there is very little new when it comes to
Right.
this stuff. It's all about consistency. It's all about doing the basics, but the basics are hard, and you have to do them every day for a really long time, and be able to look back after 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years, and
Mm-hmm.
realize, wow, look how far I've come. But day to day, you wake up just feeling like, what is the point? God, I have to do
Gotcha.
this again. This is
Right.
nonsense. But it is. There's nothing super unique. We don't have a message that you've never heard before. And that's the thing that I love about this stuff, is that there's lessons I've learned in our show that I had to hear 20, 30 times before I finally heard it the right way. And it made sense to me in a way that I could then make actionable, and it changed my life. But it's just, but you have to hear it the right way at the right time.
That's the key
Uh,
though, the right time. Like it,
yeah.
it's it, you hear it 10,000 different ways. There's a few books that I read, like Mindset by Carol Dweck. Like there's just certain books that I reread every 6 months
Mm.
because it hits me differently in those moments. And you know, I the 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 fun thing about doing the show, and like just to put a really fine point on everything that Jeremy said. Like we've been doing this show for 5 or 6 years, and well, I know I've changed a lot in it, but like I've just watched Jeremy be consistent with all these things. And there we have this joke where like I tell him about something. I was like, "Hey, you should try X." And he's like, "Ah, whatever. That's garbage. That's bull crap. That's nothing." And then 6 months later, he reads it on a blog and comes back to me. He's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this thing? It just changed my life." But the amount of change that even Jeremy has gone through in the last
Sure.
5 years is incredible because
Yeah.
he's consistently rereading those messages,
Mm.
looking at them in a different way, and just being consistent and vulnerable and all those things. So like, I want to just give a kudos to Jeremy for all the
There you go.
change and
There you
and
go.
and work
Thank you.
he's done on things.
There
Thank
you
you.
go. That's awesome. And so in 2008, a buddy of mine, so I'm, again, I'm in Toronto, Canada area, right? And so it's, excuse me, hockey is our thing. Apparently we all play hockey. I don't, but apparently that's the notion for the rest of the world. I've always been a basketball guy. And in 2008, a good friend of mine approached me, and we were just talking general. And he worked in sports media for several years. He was on a reporter, and he worked for us. There was a station in Toronto called The Score. I don't know if you remember, but it was national news sports channel. And I had worked there as an intern in the archiving room, and he was a reporter, and we became friends just by just being there. And we disconnected and reconnected, and years later, we started an NBA podcast because we wanted to talk about basketball. In a very similar fashion, you guys probably hey, let's do this. Okay, let's try that. Next thing, off you go. And ran for 5 years or so, 5 or 6 years we ran for. And the one thing that I mean, so I take so many wonderful lessons I experienced in a way that set me up and done other things, what other things it's led to. But the one thing that I'll never forget is where it started isn't where it finished. It became something entirely different. So I'm wondering for you guys, when you think about when you said let's do this thing, are you how far are you from where you ended up, where you're at now?
Um, I would say that, where we started was, like Jeremy said, like I think there was a lot more gaps, right? He said that, we talk about our own experiences and we would
Mm-hmm.
bring in an expert for the gap.
Yep.
The gap was like 95% of the show, right? We were just like a couple of guys going, "Oh, I feel bad today and I'm sad, or I cried." Like, and it was all the expert. And, where it is today, we've got more confidence. We've been around the block on this stuff quite a few times.
Good for you.
Like now our shows, we don't necessarily have guests all the time. Like there aren't gaps. We just talk about our experience, what we've done, and the research that we've done, so we can actually speak. We still don't have the plaques on the walls that Jeremy was talking about, the pieces of paper, but we've got the experiences and the knowledge behind it. So like now a lot of our shows, we don't necessarily have guests on because we can talk about those things.
Gotcha. Gotcha. You guys go the weekly. What's the frequency of the shows?
Currently, we're a weekly show. We've bounced around with a couple times a week, weekly, and so on. But right now, it's weekly.
And how I'd love to hear how you balance family and personal life with this, right? Because so I mean, if we put it all sort of in context here, you've got families, right? So you
Mhm.
support families.
Yep.
So you work full time, right? Zach, you work full time.
Yeah.
And so, but then you've got your family obligations, and now you've got this podcast. How the heck do you manage it all? Because it's a lot, and I'll tell
Yeah.
you. So I'll give you a quick. I'll tell you about that podcast. My children were very young, and when I started, so we agreed that we do Sunday nights because that was the best night of the week to do it at 8 o'clock. Is right after we put them to sleep, and that was when I was free. And so you had to balance. I'm curious, what was your thing?
So you're saying you can actually balance this stuff? That's an actionable thing
Absolutely
to
not.
have.
I'm just saying I tried. I was a weak attempt.
Right.
I just
We
want to know what
manage
you
it.
did. Maybe I can
Yeah,
take
no,
some
we manage
tips.
it badly. We manage it really badly. It's typically like a lunch break at work where we've carved out a time that we know we can relatively count on that being a free hour that we can just jump in and say, hey, what are you struggling with? How are you
Right.
dealing with it? Here's what I suggest. Boom, cut, print, publish. Um, yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, we both have full-time jobs. We live in different time zones. We have kids, we have families, we have pets, we have, rent, mortgage, we have all the things everybody else has. But like everything else I've learned in my life, that the things that are important to you, you prioritize and you make it happen. It's not always pretty. It doesn't happen 100% of the time, but that's what consistency is. It's never 100% of the time. If you're lucky, you get a solid B. So we just try. It matters enough to us to show up, to put it on the calendar, and to be there. And
Gotcha.
and we're curious enough that when we read a book and we're like, man, I have so many questions about this book. Let's contact this author. So we send an email again during that lunch break or while you're sitting there in the room trying to get the kids to sleep. It's something that's happening in the background all the time while we're doing the things that frankly matter more, right? Obviously my family matters more than this podcast. Paying my
Mhm.
rent matters more than this podcast. Like all these other things have to happen in order
Right.
for me to have the time in my life to do this. It's a
Mhm.
luxury to be able to sit here and talk about myself and my feelings once a week with my friend. So but it's a luxury that matters to me and is a big part of my life. So it's a priority, just like going to the gym is a priority. It's on the calendar. I show up because I said I would. A year ago, that might not be the case, right? Like it's one of those things that have to you have to practice. You have to suck at it at first, and it has to become important enough that it becomes the habit that just is the thing that shows up on the calendar, and you do it because you told yourself you would.
That- How do you make it work, Zach?
Even worse. Even worse. Honestly, the it I would say more often than not, it's Jeremy joining a meeting and going, "Are you coming? Are you going to show up?"
I
I
would
mean,
say that too.
yeah, it's and I won't,
I guess I can speak from experience. Doesn't that what happened today?
it's kind of what happened today. I was
So we're on track for the norm. That's what we're saying.
well, the big difference is I showed up for this one, so
That's true. He
it's
did show up. You got to give him
you
credit
know,
for this one.
I did
Kudos,
show up.
kudos.
Yeah, no, I mean, my job is demanding, like I have, my, I have not just, my job, but I've got multiple departments that I manage at a
Sure.
company. So like it's a big job and there's a lot of responsibility around it. And it's not something that I can, punch in at 8, take my lunch break and punch out at 5. Like, I mean,
Yep.
2 nights ago, I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning working on something just because it had to get done. So my and then my personal, I try and have a personal life and I try and have fun and I like to go to the gym and I like to do all these things. But, life is busy and it gets in the way. And, we carve out the time and sometimes we miss it. Um, in the last, I'd say in the last month, we've missed almost a month. Like it happens. It definitely happens. So
Yeah.
for me, it's just getting the time on the calendar, which we have. Sometimes that doesn't even work, right? Because emergencies pop up or things that I planned that I forgot to tell them about, like just all the things.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
is really difficult to
Yeah.
make that time.
Yeah, yeah, I do like the idea of prioritizing, and I think Jeremy mentioned the things that are important to you that you committed to that you show up for. It's almost like in some ways, I think you're making a deal with yourself, right? Like a personal deal with yourself. This is what I am going to do, and sort of following through on that, which I think is a key to any kind of major success in life, which is phenomenal. Tell me about the name of the podcast and how you landed on that, and go to the premise behind the name.
So I have to give the full credit to my ex-wife. Um, we were married at the time, and Jeremy and we were either virtual or sitting at my kitchen table, and we were just going back and forth trying to figure out, like, we had all these, keywords of, vulnerability, emotions, and like, um, I probably used the word messy at some point. Like we're just going back and forth trying to come up with names. And I honestly don't even remember any of the examples of what we almost called it.
There was a lot of bad ones, but the idea was we know nothing, but we have some advice. So listen up. That was kind of the direction we were trying to go. Because we're not trying to be the guru on the hill. We're not trying to be the expert. We know a few things that have worked for us, and we want to share those. So we wanted to frame it perfectly. And so yeah,
Yeah.
table tennis back and forth with awful titles, and
Yeah.
then magic happened.
And then my ex-wife, she was, walking back and forth and doing chores around the house as we were having this conversation. And she literally walked by and said, "Why don't you just call it the fit mess?" And then walked right out the door, and she, like, mic dropped.
That's
We
awesome.
looked at each other and we're like, "Oh, yeah, that nails it."
Yeah,
So,
that pretty much covers it.
Got you. Um, when did you sort of land on what you knew it wanted to be, what you wanted to entail? Because it's one of these things. I mean, what I'm hearing and what I've checked out a little bit, it's sort of you guys cover a wide sort of array of different topics. Now, how do you know, or what is it just kind of what you're dealing with in the moment, or how does that look like? I mean, do you have production meetings to figure out, okay, guys, we're gonna do this here, or is it just spontaneous?
When we have time to plan, we do, but for the most part, it is in this way. It's very similar to the birth of the thing. It is stuff that we're struggling with. It's stuff that we're
Right.
going through. I literally remember the day that I got really open to this idea. As we were sitting around a campfire, and Zach was showing me how he'd lost a ton of weight doing this crazy keto diet, and I thought, well, that's nuts. How's that going to work? And so I asked him a bunch of questions, did some research, modified it for my own eating style. At the time, I was a vegetarian, and so I had to kind of make some tweaks to make it work for me. But there was something about seeing that, wow, he did something, he had an idea that I'm now implementing, and then it worked. I dropped like 70 pounds, and it was ridiculous how quickly it happened. And so it's very much that. It's, hey, are you struggling with time management? Are you struggling with your routine? Have you been to the gym in the last 6 months? Are you eating like a dumpster? Like, what's going on with you? And so, because that's the thing with this, nobody's ever got it figured out. Whatever advice you're getting from the guru on the hill, they are also a mess. They're also struggling all the time. They just don't want to show you that. So we're open enough to just say, this is where I'm a mess right now. Can you help me clean it up? And we're always going through something. So it's very much that. It's born very much from our own experiences in our own lives, to again try to make that person out there who feels alone, who doesn't have someone to talk to help
Mhm.
them realize, God, these guys are going through this too. Like, I thought they had their act together. Turns out none of us do. Some of us just put on a better show than others.
Got you. Got you. Uh, you know, I think one of the things I talked earlier about, what you started and where you finished, and what I did think in terms of the show and what it looks like, and how far that the two are from one another. I'm also kind of curious, and maybe each of you can sort of comment in terms of how you've seen what changes and developments you've seen in yourselves. Because I think when you consciously are engaging these conversations, and even a guy like myself who I started very quickly. I wanted a podcast. The pandemic said no, you can't do this anymore, so I wanted to do something else. I've been podcasting since 2008. I said, hey, let me do something that I'm comfortable with, but let me talk about something that was important to me. And when I start to look back, I'm thinking, okay, so, and I look at my life and I look at sort of all my accomplishments, my successes, it was on the strength of some form of audaciousness, some sort of the audacity and the courage and the boldness to do things and try things and look how it turned out for me. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. And even through that process, I've still learned more about myself. And I still developed in ways I didn't even see coming. And I get to sit down and talk to people, and I get all these blessings and these gifts, and I'm benefiting, right? I'm supposed to be giving it, but I'm the benefiting. So I'm just curious for yourselves, like where have you seen the benefits and the gains?
well, I mean, personally, I can. This will be a slightly different answer, but anyway, I spoke earlier about like how far Jeremy has come.
Mhm.
and he mentioned, earlier how, I was doing the keto diet and, he was, a couple steps behind me at that point. And that has been, the it's been kind of the show for a long time was like, I did this thing, and then Jeremy was like a couple steps behind me, and he was always, keeping up and staying there. Um, and through the whole thing, like we both just continued to progress and progress and progress, and anxiety started to disappear, depression started to disappear,
Right.
just mental health just got better and better and better. And then I think in the last year, this is the interesting thing, is like Jeremy has now passed me in that now when we record, I feel like I'm the one who's a few steps behind him. I also had a couple of things that like brought me back down. So, and I want Jeremy to kind of talk more about his journey, but I want to highlight that because it really is interesting how we've kind of flipped now. So now in the past, we'd get on a show, he'd be like, "Hey man, I'm struggling with this, and this." And I'd be like, "Oh, I had that a while ago. I did this,
Mm.
this, and this." Now we get on a show and he's like, "I'm kind of good." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, I've got this problem and this
Really?
problem and this
Tell me.
problem and this problem." So I like the who I was at the beginning of the show is vastly different from who I am now. I have had like a couple of issues in the last year, but like it has my mindset is different.
Sure.
How I talk to myself is different. Like I
Yep.
used to call myself a jerk, asshole, like all
Wow.
kinds of bad words
Wow.
all
Wow.
the
Yeah.
time. Now it's more like, "Oh, no, no, no. You're okay. You're fine. You're good." So like my entire mindset has changed, but I say all of that because I want Jeremy to really highlight what's changed for him since the beginning.
I mean, I live on a different planet than the one that I started on. Like
Love it.
we're talking, massive weight loss to not caring what the number on the scale says because I know it's irrelevant. uh Mindset different. I completely went without alcohol for 7 years. I can now responsibly have a glass of wine and have that be the end of it. I literally do not have a negative voice in my head anymore. I've completely removed it from my life. I immigrated to Canada from the United States because I had the bravery to do it, which I was something that I was always afraid of. I mean, I go to the gym on a regular basis, and if I don't go to the gym, I do something physically challenging every day. I mean, that's something that, a year ago, I'm still struggling with. I'm still trying to figure
Mhm.
out. I hate this. How do I do it? Now I feel weird when I don't do it.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm a different human being. I'm a better parent to my kids. I'm a better husband to my wife. Uh, I mean, the list is endless, and it's all, again, I mentioned the idea earlier of you have to kind of do these small things every day for a really
Yep.
long time.
Right.
That's how I got here. So, I mean, I can hear somebody out there waiting for here's the one thing I did. The one thing I did is I stuck to my promises.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I said, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start sleeping better. I'm going to start
Yeah.
going to the gym. And the gym is the biggest one. Like that one to me, like the fact that I go to the gym on a regular basis is a bigger deal to me than the fact that I moved to another country because I
Wow.
hated it. It is such, I mean, because you move and you're done, right? The
Sure.
gym, you have to go every day for the rest of your life. You have to do something every day for the rest of your life. And I cannot tell you how much I hated it. I literally was in there going, I'm wasting an hour of my life every day. And the discipline that I've learned there, the
Yeah.
patience that I've learned there,
Mhm.
it's it's one of those things that it's a promise I had to make to myself that you're going to do this because you in 10 years is going to feel better about you now than you feel about you 10 years ago when you should have started this.
Right. Right.
So it's just making that promise that I'm going to just do something small every day and it's going to just get better and better because otherwise the end result is, pain, weight
Sure.
issues,
Sure.
disease. Like I want to be a healthy old man. I want to die a healthy old man. I don't want to limp into the grave.
Right. 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 I mean, I'm hearing the power of consistency and like starting something and keeping at it. Like I think that's the and we talk about vulnerability, how important that is, right? Like, I think consistency is another piece in all this that when you start something and you stick to it, that will get you on that path to success. However you define what success is, right?
Yeah.
That's predefined, but whatever that is, it's not going to get there by trying to once and going, oh, well, I did it, and that's it. Like it's got to be like part of your life, and like you said, every day for the rest of your life, right? So I get it, and it that's a difference maker for sure. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the hard thing that you have to lean into the hard things. We don't, we don't intentionally face hard things enough anymore. And
Mm,
by doing so, you become more resilient, you become stronger, so that when the bad things happen, when life gets in the way, it doesn't knock you down as far because you've been practiced. You've
yeah.
faced the trials, and you can like, oh, if I can do that, I can manage this thing that's come up in my life. But we all expect convenience. We all expect everything to be easy. We expect to have food delivered to our door. We expect entertainment to be delivered to our television.
Right.
We expect
Right.
to not have to do anything. And so
Right.
then as soon as something bad happens, we
What the
completely lose our minds. If we have any addictive tendencies, we fall right back into the bottle. Like whatever struggle, whatever poor coping mechanism you have is probably because you haven't intentionally trained yourself to be more resilient and stronger. I'm talking to me 10 years ago. Like if
Right.
somebody's, feeling butthurt by what I'm saying right now, I get it. I was butthurt when I heard people
Right.
talking like this.
That's
But
true.
it's true. You have to practice dealing with hard things
Yeah.
because they're coming, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not getting a knock on the door to say it's 3 o'clock. I'm gonna screw up your life now. Okay. Are you
Right.
okay with that?
Right.
No.
Mhm.
It
Right.
just
It's coming.
happens, right?
Yeah.
I also think there's I'm a big fan of giving ourselves credit for the things that we achieve. And why that's important is and how often do you get through something, it was a big deal in the moment, you overcome it, and then you move on, you forget about it, right? It's in the rear view, and then all of a sudden you forget about it. And you've also, by forgetting about, you also forget about some of those lessons that you learned to get through that period. And if it happens again, I mean, not saying you won't get through it again, but you sort of forget, oh yeah. So I think there's much to be said about giving yourselves credit, because Zach, you're talking about experience of life. Like, life is a collection of experiences, right? And whether you call them good experiences or call them bad experiences, they are coming. It's what you do with them when they land on your doorstep is what matters. And what you do after that also matters too.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
that speaks to the trauma that a lot of us deal with. And, we had a guest on that said this, and it's always stuck with me.
Mhm.
We all had some sort of trauma growing up as a kid, and
Right.
it's not our fault, but it's absolutely our responsibility to clean it up. It's just like if somebody came and dumped a bunch of trash on your lawn, it's not your fault it's there, but nobody else is coming to clean it up. That's on
That's right.
you. So get
That's
to
right.
work.
That's right.
Yeah. And there's a, sorry, my daughter is a huge Taylor Swift fan. So like I have learned to love her and have listened to all the songs. I know
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
songs.
Yeah.
And there's one line, and it's a love song, but there's this one line that says, it's been so long since I've forgotten about you that I forgot why I needed to. And
Mm.
that line speaks to me across everything. So like all of the, right, if you do something hard, if you do something that is, difficult for you, you need to do it often. You need to be able to remember that. You need to be able to come back to it. So, to Jeremy's earlier point, like you have to do hard things often. You have to put yourself into a bit of a struggle.
Yes.
Um, Otherwise you will forget why you know, needed to do it.
That's right. That's
Um,
right.
so a little Taylor
I'm
knowledge drop
smiling because
there.
usually I'm the one that quotes Taylor Swift. Today it's Zach's turn, so that's funny.
Hey, I've
That-
I've seen her live. I was 15 rows from her, so
That's right. You win the contest.
So that you're a Swiftie? Is that what they call themselves? Or is that
it is. And again, like my
okay?
dog, this is kind of my life approach. Like even like my parenting style, right? Like Taylor Swift music is not what I would listen to. Like I love heavy metal and
Yeah.
rap music, so like
Yeah.
those are my jams.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift is neither, but my daughter loves Taylor Swift, and
So yeah.
like my parents, there it was a, growing up, it was very much a, I don't care what you love. I don't care what you're into. You're going to do what I tell you to do. You're going to eat what
Sure.
I tell
Yeah.
you to
Yeah.
eat.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there just wasn't that there. But by choosing to love what my daughter loves, like the bond between us is incredible.
Yeah.
And then once you get into Taylor Swift, it does get a little
Then
catchy.
then
I
you're
won't lie.
then
I,
you're
I
down
don't
that
see
rabbit
any.
hole.
I don't see any friendship bracelets, Zach. Where's your friendship bracelet?
It's actually upstairs. I took it out. I've got enough stuff
I
on
love
my.
it.
But
Okay.
but again, across the board, like with
Yeah.
parenting, with friends, like it, we spend so much time like on ourselves. But if you really just put yourself in someone else's shoes to understand what they love, what they're passionate about, and genuinely care about it, like it's a game changer in how people
Mhm.
perceive you, interact with you, and like can just put a smile on someone's
Absolutely.
face, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. You touched on parenting, and I think it's a good opportunity. We're all fathers here, and so and I know for myself, and then as a parent, and I think all parents, they want the best for the children, right? And parents oftentimes they want to give their children the things that they didn't have because they didn't have, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a very commendable thing. The piece I oftentimes wonder is because are we sometimes making things too easy for our kids? So I will do anything I possibly can to avoid my son having the challenge or struggles that I had growing up. Now, those same struggles and challenges I had help make me more resilient, flexible, adaptable, and being able to handle kind of better equipped to handle things that come along. I've not given him that opportunity the same way that I had. I'm just curious your thoughts. That's a piece that's been mulling around in my head for a little while now in terms of um, wanting what wanting the best for your children, but are we robbing them of some experiences at the same time?
I mean, it depends on your perspective on it. The way I see this is the trauma and the stuff that I went through was
Hmm.
in no way intentional to help me develop as a person.
Right.
So I don't want my kids to have the same issues that I did, but I want
Right.
them to have challenges and overcome things. So it's very much intentional when I choose to make them go through something hard because I
Mm,
know it's safe. I know how it's going to end. I know they're going
right.
to come out winners on the other
Hmm.
side. They don't. So I want them to have a little bit of that fear and have a little bit of that insecurity and show that they can do it. I don't want them to have to wonder, is dad going to be drunk when I get home? Is our mom and dad going to be fighting when I get home? Is
Understood.
dad going to be alive when I get home? I don't want
Mhm.
them to have the same stuff that I had growing up. So, for me, it's they can't decide on something. I make them make the decision. They don't know it's silly stuff too. Like even I don't know what to wear to this. You'll make the right choice. You don't
Mhm.
need me to make that choice for you. And that's not a huge thing.
Right.
There's a fight right now I'm having with my teenage daughter. She's 13. She
Hmm.
wants to quit band. And the alternative is literally an hour of free time at school. This is the same kid that comes home telling me how bored she is at school.
Right.
Sorry, you're going to do the hard thing. You're going to go
Right.
learn band. You're going to learn the skill that will pay off later in life, or at least be fun for you later in life. Sitting around doing nothing for another hour at school where you're already not challenged is not going to
Right.
benefit you.
Right.
So to me, it's very much the same reason I get in a icy river every week. You have to do hard things so that you're stronger and more resilient.
Mm,
But to whatever degree I can control it, it's
got you.
safe and it's going to end well. There's other challenges that I mean, the reason I'm in Canada, if I can get political for just a
Hmm.
second,
Hmm.
I was sick of worrying every day if my kid was going to come home alive from school.
Mm,
Being killed, like, gun violence is the number one killer of children in America.
yes.
It's ridiculous. So when I had an opportunity to have that thought, that fear removed from my head
Hmm.
and potentially save their lives, I took it.
Got you.
So yeah, kids that are going through this are going to be tough as hell and resilient if they make it out alive. That
Got
wasn't
you.
a risk I was willing to take anymore.
Yep.
So
Great
it's
point.
stuff like just being really intentional about still introducing hardship and challenge, but in a way that they can come out
Safe.
stronger
Yeah.
and safe from it. Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Zach, any thoughts or?
Yeah, I'll just double down on it. It's, our childhood was, there was nothing malicious about it,
Right.
especially in my case. Like, my parents just didn't know better. Um, it's not like they were trying to take me down or anything like that.
Sure.
But there is I do look at parenting in two different camps, right? There's the way I was raised and there's the way my daughter's getting raised.
Right.
And there's not a whole lot of gray area in it. It's either, to Jeremy's point earlier, like if you have a parent that's just not providing the the family that you need in order to thrive, only the resilient are going to survive. And some people don't get out alive, like, or, end up in jail or like drug
Right.
use, like just all over the
Hmm.
place. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
I went to rehab when I was 18 and fortunately got off some stuff that I shouldn't have been on. I got into a lot of trouble. My entire family thought that I was going to be in jail for the
Mm,
rest of my life because I was that kid.
right.
Um, Fortunately, I was resilient enough and had some glimmer of hope that changed my life, and the some of the community helped me get back, and that's another reason why we do the show is I want to get back to the community. that helped me. But then on the flip side, when I'm raising my daughter, like like I'm resilient because I had to fight through things like that. My daughter is not resilient because she's fighting through things like that. But then that's where I need to step up again and show her a good example of what a good human being is, how to treat other people, how
Mhm.
to be responsible, how to plan for your financial future. My daughter's 13 years old, and I literally talk about how much money I have and where my investments are and what I do for work and the hard decisions I have to make. Like, I don't hold it back. I really expose her to this stuff. And I make sure that if I don't just tell her no on something. I
Yep.
very much explain my thought process and the experience that I have behind it. So I was worried for a long time that my daughter was being spoiled
Mm.
because I gave her everything she
Yeah.
wanted. She
Yeah.
didn't want for anything, all of these things. But I'm also there for her
Yes.
whenever she needs help. Like, I've got a 13-year-old daughter that talks to me about her feelings and her emotions and the struggles that she's going on at school. How many
Yeah.
dads can say that?
Yeah. It's
Not
amazing.
many. Like, I've provided, this world, this situation for her to be vulnerable, to have, a different experience that's teaching her responsibility, the ability to grow up and live a good life without the pain and suffering that I had. So I did worry about it in the future, but it's just something I had to adapt to. And just to double down on what Jeremy said, they're not suffering like we are. We're just
Right.
providing better examples than our parents did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The power of presence. I'm certainly hearing that in both of your responses. Like it's to be physically present, mind, body, spirit, to be able to connect with our children is huge. One of the things, I mean, I do a bunch of things, and one of the I do a little bit of men's coaching, and it's probably along the lines of, I mean, when you think of the kind of conversation that you guys have together, it's creating that space, right? We talked earlier about creating that space, and so I'm always been a big fan of acronyms, and so I have an acronym I call it's the BRAVE acronym, right? The B stands for boundaries. R is responsibility, so taking responsibility, being accountable. A is acceptance, right? There's certain things we all know. There's certain things in life that we just have to accept as they are, and it's what our response is to that is what is a difference maker. The V, we talked about it, vulnerability, how important that is from a connection standpoint, to be able to be open and honest, both emotionally, especially the emotional part, being emotionally honest is so important. And then our esteem, how we feel about ourselves. I think all of these factors are so important. And throughout our conversation today, I've heard all of that and everything that you guys have talked about, and really speaks to the significance of why we need to have these spaces, and why these spaces are important, even if just as a sounding board, to be able to say, and probably, hey, I'm going through this. How am I dealing with this? Or I don't know. Here's what I did. That kind of a thing. These are the things that make a difference. I want to just highlight that, because what you're doing, you may not realize how significant an impact, or maybe you are, and if you are, fantastic. But it is extremely important that these spaces are created to allow people to freely hear, as well as to contribute to. So congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very kind of you to say that, and I'm sure as a podcaster, you know how sometimes it feels like shouting into the void. So
Mhm.
Yes.
it is nice to hear other people sort of acknowledge what you're trying to do, whether it's working or not. I do hope that the people that do hear your show, your message, and ours as well, that it just opens a door. It just helps them figure out what's that next path I have
Yeah.
to get through to find the three more options on the other side.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I guess a lot of men, you're hearing from a lot of men directly, because you're not necessarily tailored at men, or
You
curious
would
what
be
that.
surprised that people are always shocked when we tell them this. Most of our audience, actually, as it turns out, are women, because we hear from the wives and girlfriends of the guys who should be listening to this kind of stuff, who should be engaged in this kind of content, saying, I wish he would listen to what you guys are saying because it would help him so much. So I think our audience, though we try to talk to men, we try to talk to us 10 or 15 years ago. It's the wives and girlfriends of those guys that show up because they're trying to figure out how to get through to this guy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And we do, I mean, we do while we are tailoring to men, like most of what we talk about is applicable to both male and female
Yeah.
as well. But you know, as guys, we're kind of biased in our experience as guys.
Course,
So
Right.
of course, of course. Listen, I mean, even through this podcast, much time is spent, encouraging people to live this, this best audacious life, right? We want individuals to go out and take chances and take risks and do the things that we're supposed to. Like we're all on our sort of predestined path, whether we realize it or not. And it's a matter of us making that choice to go on that path, right? So, so Jeremy, you're in BC because you were supposed to be there, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't because it was a whim or a fluke or random. You were supposed to be, and everything that falls out, everything that happens after that was part of that journey for you. And so I think it's really important. One of the most important things that we can do, I'm gonna go back to the A in my brave framework, is to accept that. And once we can accept that and everything that happens after that, then I think we're, life is golden after that. And I'm so, guys, this is really cool. I really appreciate that we had the time to hang out like this. And if we can, for listeners, where can we properly direct them if we wanted to get them on board the Fit Mess podcast?
The easiest way is our website. It's the Fit Mess. Make sure you use the M and not the N. Thefitmess.com. That's going to have links to all of the social medias and the podcast and all the stuff. So thefitmess.com.
Awesome. Well, I thank you both. You've gained a new fan and listener over here for sure, and really looking forward to engage you guys down the road. Congratulations on all the success, and I say that from the standpoint where, and as you guys know, podcasting is a labor of love. It is. If you're not loving it, then if that's not your starting point, you're going to have a tough road. And so, congratulations for finding that path and finding that thing that you love, and then, as we said earlier, being consistent with it.
And same to you. Congratulations with all you're doing and keep up the great work.
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. We're back right here on the podcast, and man, it was so cool to hang out with Jeremy and Zach. Love having them here, and I can relate with so much of what they shared, as I've had similar experiences as well on my own podcasting journey. And both as Jeremy and Zach eloquently highlighted in our conversation, true audacity lies in embracing challenges and opportunities for growth, developing a resilient mindset, and prioritizing self-care. That really is a big one. By channeling our inner strength and seeking support when needed, we can surmount any obstacle and create the life that we desire. I'd certainly encourage listeners to connect with Jeremy and Zach and check out the Fit Mess podcast. And certainly they can provide you some great insights and direction and guidance. Of course, the contact details can be found in the show notes below for easy access. And I really want to thank you for the support. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, consider following, subscribing, and sharing if you haven't already done so, because that's how we reach even more listeners and continue to spread that positivity and empowerment vibe. Together, we can make audacious living a reality for each and every single person on this planet. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.